Hi, Dr. Rob.
Good evening, Tammy. And how are you today?
I'm doing well. It's Thanksgiving week, and so I always think of lots of things to be grateful for. I try to focus on that. But I have the opportunity to travel and be with family, which hasn't happened in a few years. So I'm incredibly grateful. But glad we're here tonight doing this. So I know the schedule. I'm going to say this on the recording. The schedule for this week. Please pay attention on the sexandrelationshiphealing.com site because there are things that are canceled on Thursday and Friday. So there are opportunities, but there are things that are canceled. So make sure that you're watching the schedule, not just your automatic calendar notice. But without further ado, Dr. Rob, we've got one. I put it in the answered. I'm the sex addict husband in recovery since formal disclosure a year ago. My wife and her therapist and I have my wife has her therapist and I have my CSAT. It seems there's so much information lost in trying to inform each other of the therapy we're receiving. Although my wife feels unsafe with me, I would prefer to have a common therapist who meets with us at the same time so we both hear what the therapist is saying. I think it would help the two of us to be on the same page and operate as a team. When or do you recommend we meet together with the same therapist?
Well, the first thing is I don't hear that your wife says she would like to do this. So you said my wife feels unsafe with me. Um, I hear her information is lost, but I don't hear her saying her resolution would be that. But in any case, I absolutely agree that you need to have your own person and each of you need that support. This seems to me to be a conversation that you need to have. Maybe there's this way of thinking about it is when, as a therapist, I need to know your goal. Are you coming to therapy because you want to feel better about something? Are you coming to therapy because you have a drinking problem? And I would want to know, what is the goal for you as a couple? Is it about moving forward? Is it about having some distance? Is it about the trust issue? I think all of those things would be well served in couples work. And she doesn't feel safe with you, but I was going to say one more thing, which is you don't have to necessarily inform each other of everything that happens in each other's therapy. Therapy is personal. Therapy may be just between you and that person. Now, if you start whipping stuff out like, well, my therapist said that you should be, and you say that to your spouse, that's a problem because I don't always necessarily believe how the therapist received that information, what's actually coming back. So tell me it does create situations where there can be manipulation lying. I mean, that does concern me. But Tammy, I'm going to grab a quick glass of water. Can you
Okay,
say a
I
little
hear
bit
a
more
little
about
tickle in
that?
your throat. Yeah. So
Yeah, it's
okay.
cold
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I was actually on the receiving end of one of those conversations earlier today where someone called me and said, "You told this person," and I was like, "That was not how that all went." So I get that, and that is a challenge. But I I wondered, what is your personal goal with your therapist, and have you suggested that the two therapists with the two of you have a session maybe at least once a month or periodically so that both therapists are working to support each of you but also the relationship. So yeah, the therapy for you is working with you, the therapy for her is working for her, and then yes, at a certain point, especially when you're past formal therapeutic disclosure, which that's what I assume you're saying, is that you can either do conjoint therapy, the two therapists, or have a couples therapist, that meets. So I suspect that there is an opportunity there, but I 100% agree with Dr. Rob. What is the goal for your wife as well? What would help her feel safe, in moving forward? Her being dragged to another therapist, may not feel good to her, and may not feel like that's a safe thing for her as well. So I can't hear you. You're muted. You're muted.
Sorry, I want to
That's
hear me
okay.
pouring water. Sorry. I do want to say that the purpose of therapy is not to reassure each other about everything that happened in your therapy. And I think, Tammy and I talk about over talking it. And I think, when I come home, if I've been in therapy, I expect my spouse to say, how was your therapy? Did you learn, was it useful? Did you, is anything I want to know about? But if she's seeking to feel safe by learning everything that's going on in your therapy, then you don't have a safe place. And I can understand her thinking, well, I would never know if he was sober because he doesn't really tell me what's going on in his therapy. You might set some boundaries and say, if these things come up in therapy, we're going to talk about them, and maybe reassure her that if certain things that worry her, that you would absolutely tell her. And it wouldn't just be between you and your therapist. But I am not a fan of, you know how much, Tammy, and I preach communication and encourage connection. But I think oversharing when you are working on things in a very personal way can kind of get you guys caught up in a not healthy way. And I'd rather see the trust there grow, which is, I will tell you, it wouldn't hurt, like Tammy said, if she's feeling really unsafe, she could go see your therapist with you and say, here are the things I feel unsafe about. That would be taking care of herself. And by the way, we do take spouses in once or twice. We call them a collateral, which literally means you are collaborating with us and bringing in information and, you know, helping us get on track, but you're not there for therapy yourself. And that can be really, really helpful, especially with addicts, when one person's being told this and one person's being told that. Anyway, great question.
I have another comment too, because, and I know these are always brief, but you know, I hear you've been through formal therapeutic disclosure, you're working with your therapist. I didn't hear, and here's all the other recovery work I'm doing, and here's all the other support I'm doing. That may also be a factor in her not feeling safe as well, because you know, with these are complex issues. If and I'm not saying you're not, but if you are only seeing even the best therapist, that you know that isn't enough to to counteract all the years or decades of untrust. So making sure that your spouse is aware of what your plan is in your program. If you haven't started doing like the Thanos check-in, maybe that would help your spouse, gain some trust. That could be a good connection point. There's so many different ways, to help build that bridge as well. So,
And we teach
okay.
courses,
Yes.
and I mean, and I want to say something about that. When we do, for example, Sex Addiction 101, it isn't just the basics, because it goes on to advancing and then advancing. And so sometimes people get reminded of the basics, but they start to build a community and grow, together. Taken
Mhm.
out of the doghouse class, your wife may see you be more empathic toward her. So, and also I do think part of your being seen sitting there in a class once a week reassures your spouse that you're doing something about it. And then there's all the free stuff. By the way, it'd be great if the two of you are listening to podcasts in the car. I find a lot of couples feel that that's helpful to them. Or, God, I got a million YouTubes. Sometimes it can just be things you both need to understand better. And it's better if you're in the same room together. So some people, I'll shut up. I hate going on and on, but some folks will read a chapter of one of the books to each other, so they can
Oh,
get some share, and
interesting.
then they can ask questions and talk about stuff. So, and if you don't like to read, there's audiobooks. So, all of that. But this is a communication issue, and there's so many different ways to make that happen. Um, and it's only been a year.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I was also thinking, because we have the work groups on seeking integrity for you, but like I don't know, has she developed what her healthy boundaries are? Has she stated what they are? So, and are you not blowing through them? Are you abiding by them so that she's starting to go, oh, look, he's becoming trustworthy? I mean, there's so many pieces of this. So thank you for being here. Thank you for asking. And it's more complex, but I think, talking to your CSAT, but making sure you guys are communicating about what is our goal, and with professional help, but lots more support, free and low cost on our sites too. So, okay, next question, Dr. Rob. This is from a female. My former partner, PA, has also
Or an
acted out with
addict,
strippers. Yes, yes.
just so people know.
I should honestly say that, because I
Just because
started
they don't
reading
always
through
know. I'm
these, and
sorry, I don't
yeah,
mean to
no, I
correct you.
know that. No, that is, you're right. So my former partner, who was a porn addict, has also acted out with strippers. Has a widowed best friend with two little girls. He babysits for them alone. Should I be concerned? Warn the best friend. I honestly don't know what to do. So this
Well,
feels like if somebody watches porn, would they
right.
offend with children?
Right. Well, there's two pieces to this. And I agree with you. One of the questions that comes up a lot, and I'm really glad you asked this, even if it isn't in the context of what you were thinking, which is, so many people hear out of control sexual behavior, and they immediately go to, they're hurting children, they're looking at child porn, because after all, it's, if you said out of control violence, that would be pretty scary. But in my experience, there's a very, very small percentage of sex addicts that go on to offending or are offenders. And a lot of time it's stuff they're looking at online. It's not necessarily contact offenders, someone who would touch or be inappropriate with a child. I don't see a lot of those folks in addiction um, as someone who would actively do it or has actively do it. Now, I don't know how old these girls are. If they were post-pubescent, I might feel differently.
Two
There is,
little girls, so I'm kind of
yeah.
thinking under 10.
By the way, I don't know if you're like me, but I have cameras in my home, and if anyone were to walk in or whatever, I would know. And I think one of the first cameras they had were those teddy bear cameras, so you can always watch. There's one more thing I wanted to say about this. Um, yeah, I just don't see. Oh, so just because you look at porn, oh, I know what the other issue is. Sorry, Tammy, it's been a long day.
Yeah.
What I would worry about if he's a porn addict is, does he look at it when they're in the room? Does he look at it when they might be running through playing? Because they may not be actively harmed at all, but they're seeing things or seeing. And I have had people say, well, I just sit in the corner and look at porn while the kids are playing. I would be more concerned about that and than the actual behavior that he's done so far. That's what I hear the most of. Tammy, anything?
Well, so I'm going to ask you another question. So this is a person who is a former partner, is not in the relationship anymore. So what is your take on, do you reach out to this person and
The
share
friend?
someone
You mean the
else's
friend?
addict? Yeah. Do you reach out to
Hmm.
the best friend and share this person's a porn addict? You may not know it. I mean, like, what are your thoughts on that?
Or you're speaking to me?
I'm
Um,
asking. Yeah, I'm asking
well,
for input.
I think these are two separate issues. I think if you want to talk to your friend about what you went through with this person and what you've struggled with, she can decide for herself, what she wants to do. You don't even have to say sex addict. You can say, he was unfaithful to me. But I wanted to go into something else, if you don't mind, which is interesting to me
Peace.
here, which is, and I think this is a really, how do I say this? There's kind of a lack of understanding in the question, which is, this is not a porn addict. This is a sex addict. You could say he's a porn addict, but once he starts acting out with real life people like strippers, that's a sex addict. And once I hear that somebody
Great.
has acted out with strippers, well, certainly it's not that porn addicts are in less pain or they do less harmful things, but they are people who haven't touched, haven't looked at, haven't been to, you don't see porn addicts going to massage parlors. You don't see them going to strip clubs because they're anxious and fearful about connection. They would love to go do those things, which I hate to say, but they say that. They started their own program because they felt like the sex addicts were engaging in live behavior that they were just watching online. So to me, if someone calls themselves a porn addict, but they're acting out with strippers, then they're trying to minimize to some degree the reality of what they do. And I hate to say this, but it wasn't just strippers. I think about some other arenas that went on. There is one more thing here, and Tammy, I'm surprised you didn't say it. Is he in recovery? Is he going to meetings? Is he in therapy? I mean, you said that he did this, when he was your partner, but as a widowed best friend with two little girls. Yeah, I would wonder about the recovery piece here. And
Yeah,
Tammy, maybe
and
I got that
no,
wrong.
you're right. I went to the assumption of that is an active, still addict. Like I kind of made up the whole story of like, we're no longer in a relationship because he never got help. So, but again, that was I made up that whole story because it isn't written in there. So,
Well, and to that point, thank you, Tammy. It's like, if I felt concerned that something might be going on, I would feel very reassured if I knew my former partner had a plan or they had a sponsor or they were in therapy. And so it's almost like we don't have enough information here, because is this person who's actively focusing on recovery, no matter what they did out there, other than offending, or are they just kind of like, oh yeah, I've got this problem and it's not as bad as it used to be, and then they are hanging out with those kids? That would make me more concerned. So yeah, I mean, it's a complicated question, but I do think it's not we don't look at it as it's automatic. Okay, so you act out with porn and you go to sex clubs or whatever, so that means you're going to harm a teenager. And they aren't really correlated in that way.
okay, next question.
Would you,
I'm
no, Tim, I
two.
want to ask you, would
No,
you agree with
yeah.
that? Because you've heard
Well,
so many
it's
people.
complicated okay. No, I know, but it's like, it was one of those, I was challenged because like, I always want to protect the kids, but I was like, if
Of
he is
course.
acting out and it's always out there, but you're right. If he's, I mean, we've had guys come to our treatment program who are acting out on their devices and there are
Right.
children in the room and so not okay. You know, and you can
Or
say, well, they
children
went to bed.
sleeping and not paying
Yeah,
attention,
exactly. I
right?
was, yeah. So they're offline now. If he had strippers and he brings escorts over while he's supposedly babysitting, another huge issue. But like you're right, we don't have enough information. But it is challenging because you know you want to protect the children, but on some level, it's also you're not in a relationship with that person anymore, and
Right.
so I mean, it's complicated. I don't have an easy answer.
None of these
Okay,
are easy
I'm
answers.
two. No, that's true. I'm 2 years removed from disclosing the use of porn and all the lies and deceit that come with that. I've been sober for almost 20 months. Yay. Right now, my wife is triggered not because of anything that I particularly did currently, but because of the reminder of things that I've done in the past. I am trying not to defend, explain, or rationalize any of my past behaviors. I am trying to create a space for her to be angry. What kind of platform do I have to help her through these triggers? I want to ask her if we can stay in the present and not the past, but I fear that will amplify things. Or I want to ask her how I can help you regulate what you are going through right now, but I fear that she will be judging her. She would be judging her for her safety seeking. So,
Well, it's interesting about
yeah.
some of the former questions, because I think this is a case where a couple would be well served in couples therapy. Because
Hmm.
if you've been sober for 20 months and she's getting triggered and you're really trying, now maybe you're not as empathic as you think you are, or maybe you're missing the mark, or maybe she's responding to trauma from the past and she is so reactive that she can't. So, I think that you might need some guidance here. And maybe that's why you're reaching out to us, because this isn't someone, by the way, folks, in a crisis. This is someone who believes that they are both walking the walk, but they can't quite reconnect in the way that probably they both do. And I think, Tammy, we have a theme here tonight, which is, spouses saying, I see good things, but I don't feel safe. Or my spouse
Hmm.
sees that I'm doing well, but I clearly they don't trust me yet. And that is a really tough one, especially if you're working really hard to get well and you're like, yeah, I've got 14 months and I've been doing all this work. And your spouse is just like, I don't want you here and don't talk to me. It's very difficult. I do not think that you can ask her for you two to stay in the present. I think if you said that to me, I would say, well, F you, I'll stay wherever I want to stay. I don't think giving her any instruction at all would be helpful. You can speak for yourself. I'd like to spend more time together. I'd like to do something fun. I'd like to, I'd like to go see, first of all, there's a light part, which is rather than focusing all this, can you guys, like the outer circle, Tammy, can you guys have some fun together? Can you, even if it is completely not touching, can you do something that you both enjoy without even making it a big deal, like we're going on a date? Just, are there
Hmm.
ways you've connected in the past? I feel like I'm yelling. Are there
No, you're
places you're
good.
connected in the past where you can reconnect now that are not so heavy? And I do think for all of us, recovery can't just be about stopping this and not doing that and avoiding this. We all have to have something to look forward to. And most of our relationships are not just about this pain. We have other parts that are intact. So I would suggest that you definitely not instruct her about what you want from her, or how you want her to act, um, or that you want to help her regulate. I think if she wants something, she can ask you. Um, However, you can more focus on what can we enjoy together, and I'm right here if you ever want to talk to me. Um, and by the way, you can say, I feel like defending my behavior. You don't have to do it, but it's actually interesting for her to hear that you're thinking about it and that you recognize how it used to be. So you might actually want to be a little bit more descriptive about your process. Um, yeah, and Tammy, I have a feeling there's a whole bunch of stuff you want to say about this.
Well, I I always say, don't say any of those things in the moment. But like when you're not in that moment, you can say,
Right.
it's so difficult. I hate how my past behavior has triggered you. It's the holiday time. Trust me, people are going to get triggered for stuff that they go, oh my gosh, I haven't even thought of that in a year, and here it is again. So so yeah, triggers happen and we don't always, see them coming. We can't go, yes, I'm going to be triggered on a discovery date or whatever. Yes, that one. But I wonder if you say, like, when we seem to get to these crossroads, is there something that I can do or say that would be helpful in that moment? Or is giving you space what you need? What can I do? What should I not do that would be useful? Like, then you're inviting feedback. And I love what Dr. Rob said about, I feel like being defensive. I don't want to be defensive. I can't fix this. All I can do is work on me so that I don't repeat that. But what would be helpful when we get to those spots? And then you can still ask her and say, we talked about this before. You said this. Is that, should I say that or do that? I mean, you can ask her. If you won't do it perfectly, but just I'm trying, like, that gets seen, and that's progress that you couldn't have done 2 years ago. So any other thoughts on that?
I'm just thinking of one day at a time. But
Yeah.
you brought up something that I want to spend a few minutes on without answering questions for a moment. Actually, I close this. And thank you, Tammy, reminded me, which it is, we don't usually put this on the podcast because it sort of dates us, but Thanksgiving, it is Thanksgiving. And there are a lot of expectations that we're supposed to have. I remember Dr. Seeley, a friend of ours, used to say forced merriment. There's this expectation that we're supposed to be happy and all enjoying each other. And so one of the things I worry about is how, and by the way, we act out over all of these issues. I remember one of the things that I just regularly did was after Thanksgiving dinner, I'd spend a few hours but I was really thinking about what am I going to do later? Because whatever came up during Thanksgiving, I would put icing on the turkey was good, but I want some icing on the cake and go act out. I didn't even realize I was acting out of the feelings that came up at the dinner. But I was writing a couple of notes, and I think there's internal boundaries. What I was thinking about, in other words, is you can make a list of things that upset you when you're with your family. Meaning if they start talking about this or they don't want to talk about that, or they try to show me this, whatever it is, you can make a list of your boundaries, things I will talk about and things I won't. I would have this conversation with your partner if you're in a relationship. When do we get into trouble? How can we nudge each other if we see one of the others getting into trouble? You can support each other. I think, and I don't mean to be all negative about families, but I know enough about the holidays that we struggle with a whole bunch of things. So I would have an escape plan. If one of you is really having a hard time, that you can come over, or you by yourself say, and I don't know what that is. You don't want to lie, but you can say, I just got really tired, or, whatever it is, or maybe you have a call set up with your sponsor. So you can truthfully say, I've got this call back. So whatever that is, have an escape plan, have boundaries around what you would think would make it particularly difficult. So you can, because in the moment we kind of forget that. Know what you're heading into over the holidays. And I said this many times, but I love having family holidays because I want to be with family. I want to have that celebration, but I also know how much of it I can tolerate. And so, I used to go to a family member's house and spend the weekend. That wasn't such a good idea. Then I would spend a night. That actually wasn't a good idea. Now I get a hotel room with my spouse and we go for a few hours. It's real fun. And then we go back. It's not because I mean to insult anyone. It's for me. Boundaries are for me. I will lose my mind if I stay overnight, for whatever that means to you. So escape plans, setting boundaries. The one other thing, well, two more. If you don't have plans for the holidays, please make some. I've said very often that there are two situations under which addicts will almost always act out. So you addicts just know this. We are most likely to act out when we are traveling and we have time where nobody quite knows where we are, or we can sort of sneak off somewhere, or whatever that is, and unstructured time alone. Even though we kind of look like we're tough with all the crazy sex stuff that we do, if you look at that as a form of being afraid of abandonment, like, I look at it like I'm leaving home to go on the road and I'm going to feel lonely. And now I realize that's why I acted out on the road, because I was lonely. During the holidays, my family goes somewhere and I'm home alone. And that the first place I used to go, because I didn't feel that stuff, was, gee, how much can I act out? And let me get online. And I would get online before the holiday and make the plans for after everyone left. The last one, and Tammy, I hope you can comment on some of these as I'm going so fast, but I realize I want to get this out.
I
I think the
appreciate it.
hardest, the hardest situation is when some of the family members know that you acted out or that your spouse acted out. No harm, no foul, but let's say I'm a wife and I got 20 years of cheating, and I called my mom or I called my sister or I called whatever, and we really talked about it and they're very supportive, but now we got to sit at Thanksgiving table and they know what I know, but others don't know it. And they're looking at my spouse like, I still hate you because it's just a very, or if both parents know it, it's a difficult dynamic. And, there may be situations for some people where you might clear that depending on who's in the room and say, oh, some of you may know that we haven't been getting along. You have to name it. And we're feeling so much better. And, thanks for loving us. You may not do that in every circumstance, but I think if there's a way that you can let people know that, yeah, this has gone on and I'm comfortable with it, rather than they can't talk about it, you can't talk about it. But just in general, I think that's a very difficult situation to walk into. Spouses often have nobody to tell, or they're too ashamed to tell anybody. So of course they may turn to a family member and say, I need your help. And when it gets to Thanksgiving, Hanukkah, and Christmas, there they are facing each other. And that's a hard thing to think about when you're in the middle of the crisis, but it will happen. So any thoughts about the holiday,
Oh,
Tammy?
yeah, no, it's, well, like I mentioned a moment ago, like you can be triggered and not even realize all of this stuff is happening and the expectations and all, and I mean, I've already had people calling. I'm like, well, what do I do? And how do we go to these parties together? And how do we be around? And I'm like, you pick, you pick how you want to do it. But I think like the
Mm.
escape plan, but also like if it's a spouse and going like, I'm gonna go see my family, you can use whatever reason, I'm just not feeling up for
Right.
it or whatever right now. Yeah, um, uh, abundance of caution, whatever you need to use to just hold that space, but go like, like I'm still going to go do this, but I don't, I'm too traumatized right now to be in a family and pretend like everything is great. I mean, I get a lot of that too. So I love your idea of have an escape plan, but even have a plan. Like I'm like you
Right.
said, like now what this is what I do. So it's not even the escape plan. I'm going to have a plan before I go, and you can have a code word if you need to leave, whatever you need to do, but take care of you so that, it isn't an extra burden, any more than it has to be with the holidays.
Well, I think this is a larger lesson for everyone, and this is part of recovery, is I have to be conscious. I have to know what situations are going to leave me. And it's part of what we do in our treatment center. Like,
Mhm.
well, I just go and do it. Well, no, you don't really just go and do it. You have these feelings, and then you start thinking this way. And we really work. And I think this is part of the work to say, when do you think you're in trouble? When might you need to do this or that? And so I think it's the same kind of thing. I don't mean to dismiss the love and caring and the connection that goes on, the spirituality that goes on in these kinds of experiences, but we're vulnerable people. And so I would want to know in advance, and here's the other thing. I don't know about you, Tammy, but when I'm with my family, I turn back into a 9-year-old. I don't, I just turn back into that little kid. I can't help it. That system is so yeah, really setting some concrete ways that you would know you're in trouble, you're upset. And by the way, if you start fantasizing about acting out, I can tell you that something ain't right. Um, a couple of more things about Thanksgiving. Don't drink. If you're not an alcoholic, I don't care whether you drink or not, but this is the right situation because we have enough work just trying to not say the wrong thing and not react and or whether you see some people disagreeing and you just want to jump in there. In other words, we lose our impulse control. We lose our ability to say, I don't think I should say that if you have a few glasses of wine and so or whatever it is. So of course the sober people are not going to, but if you're not sober, you will lose some of your inhibitions and you may do or say some things that, aren't helpful. What else can I say about the holiday? You may see people that are attractive. Somebody married someone got involved in someone's, you haven't seen since 12 and now they're 20, so be prepared for that. Be prepared for what are you going to do? Who do you have to call? How are you going to handle it? How is your spouse going to handle it? Um, the last thing I got to say, and I could make this list all day long, is it's okay to, if someone says, are you guys okay? Or, yeah, we're doing a lot better. but don't talk about it. Don't talk about it. Don't say, well, my addiction, and now I've been doing these classes, and just don't bring it up. If someone says something, be very vague and say, yeah, we've been going through some challenges, but it doesn't mean they don't know. But I would not volunteer information because it makes someone else feel this is not the setting. We have a saying: news, weather, and sports. You want to write that one down: news, weather, and sports. That's what you talk about with your family. Well, so and so just got a job, and Tammy and I did. You know how cold it is at this time of year?
Mhm.
And did you see that game? Have you watched that on Netflix? It's really okay in this situation to be superficial. You will not hear me
Mhm.
encourage that.
Mm.
Communicate less, be more superficial, because you need to be safe. And yeah, I mean, we could go on holidays forever, but we love you. I care about you, and I don't want you to come back from the holidays saying, I wish I felt better about that. Um,
Yeah.
so thanks,
Yeah.
Tammy, for
I,
doing
I,
all that
I,
with me.
I share that a lot too with we're doing okay, or, yeah, it's been a little challenging, but we're doing better. And turn the subject, ask them a question about them,
Right.
like, or just change the subject. It's really easy to do. Practice this stuff in advance. Have a plan. So you aren't going, have a plan. So, okay,
And
we have
Tammy's
lots of
right.
questions.
People
Go ahead.
love to talk about themselves. It's our
Yeah.
favorite topic.
Just
So
ask a
just say like,
question.
oh, I heard last time you were doing this. You don't have to worry about anything.
Mhm.
Go ahead,
Yes.
Tammy.
Yes. Okay, next question. Betrayed partner here, married 41 years. My SA husband has been doing all your recommended recovery work since formal disclosure in November of 21. Four slips since this time frame. I just found out for the past year he's been driving through a local college campus and also walking through a
Mm.
park where there are young moms at the playground and people playing sports. He assures me he's only interested in all the activity and isn't objectifying or fantasizing about any women. He says he didn't tell me he was doing it because he knew I wouldn't want him to. So he's sexually sober, but not honest with me. Can you help me understand the addict's mindset here? Thanks.
So I wrote an answer, hopefully for everyone can see. There's could not be a more, I mean, there are lots more, but this is such a perfect example of someone who needs to go to residential treatment, because not only is he staying, he's doing all the recommended work. I'm not sure about that, but he's slipping and he's lying and he's going into environments that are not safe for him. And certainly, I didn't go to college. Well, forget me, I'm a man. 17-year-old or 20-year-old women don't go to college. So some what you're married 41 years, so some 66-year-old geezer can cruise on campus. I can tell you, as a sex addict, I never wanted to be that guy. It was one of the reasons I recovered. I never wanted to be one of those older people who's leering
Creepy.
at younger
Yeah.
people. It's creepy, and I'm sure he doesn't look at it that way, but he's walking after or following the attractive ones. He's sitting there watching everyone go by. Who knows what he's doing? Maybe he's flirting. So this is someone who I think is unsafe. I don't really know what they're doing walking through parks where there are young moms. I mean, that just feels so icky to me. So, and then he says he's not interested in that. He's not objectifying, but there he is. But then he didn't tell you he was doing it. And he said he's sexually sober. I like that you put those in quotes. Not, but he's lying to me. So I don't know. Can you help me understand the addict's mindset? I will leave to Tammy, but I will just say this. The men who come to treatment are often in this situation and they just are so clueless. And it surprises me, and I really mean this, how many men come in at 55, at 65. I think they get to the point, hopefully, where they realize that it doesn't look pretty as you get older. You either look like a leering old person or you're paying for it. Um, I guess the last thing I want to say is this is not a man who respects your marriage. He doesn't respect you and your marriage. And I think he's spinning you and keeping you as much in the dark as he can and trying to keep you from really standing up to him and saying this isn't okay. Because, and I'll say one more thing about it, it's not your job to understand it. It's not your job to understand it. It's your job to think about how can I take care of myself in this situation, and what am I afraid of, and how can I avoid? Well, Tammy, you could talk about that part. It's not their this not this person's job to figure out what's going on with the addict. And that was sort of the purpose of the question. What do you think about that?
I am so unbelievably sad because he's lying to himself
Mm,
and he's lying to you. There is he's lying. That's, Dr. Rob sometimes types in liar, liar, pants on fire. That's this guy is lying to himself. Oh yeah, I wasn't objectified. Why isn't he going to the senior center and watching them play cards? Like
Well,
no,
I'm
seriously. But
sorry.
no, but it's like, no, he's
Well, if
going to places
if
where
you got, wait, if you got married at 20, then you don't
Mhm.
want him at the I'm just saying, because that's close to how old I am. So I'm not going to the senior
No,
center
no, no. But I'm
right
like,
now.
no, it's the young people. He's going to the young college.
Oh,
He's
why
going to
isn't he
the
going to activities that are age
exactly.
appropriate people?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. If
My
he
ego's
could
out
go
of
to
it.
the pickleball court. Yeah, this isn't no.
Okay.
It's like, no, he's going to places where there are young women, and he is absolutely objectifying and fantasizing, and he's walking through. He's spending quality time, and he's not telling you. I'm
Mhm.
like, so he's lying. We have a treatment center. He's lying. We have a treatment center. That's I,
And I really,
healthy boundaries for you.
what there are a couple of reasons why really quickly that I say this about treatment is he's been doing all the recommended recovery work. Okay, maybe he has. No, and maybe
Correct.
he really
Yeah.
has.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a piece missing. And I'm not saying that he isn't lying, he isn't cheating, but if he's going to meetings, going to therapy, taking class, doing the things he needs to do, and I mean, he had the slips, so at least he's not being completely
Mm-hmm.
dishonest about
That's
everything.
true.
So he's saying, I've done a lot of work, but he's struggling like this. And I really believe if someone's working that hard and they are still struggling at this level, that is a reason to go to treatment because, how much can you do? How many meetings, how much therapy? So at a certain point, and Tammy, I will say, at a certain point when people are really, really trying hard and they're doing their best, but they are still really struggling, that is what we do. That is why they come to us. But anyway, any other thoughts about this?
Yes, because the stopping the behavior is it's really important, but that's the very beginning of this. Let's say he's in his 60s. This is decades old. This is
Right.
decades old stuff. So it's stop the problematic behavior and address the underlying issues. But my, I mean, I suspect he really believes I'm not really objectifying. I'm just walking through because that's what we tell ourselves in active addiction is that all of these things are all okay. And I didn't want to hurt you. That's why I didn't tell you. It wasn't like, oh, I need to be accountable. I thought I saw a moth or something.
Yeah.
But I want to be accountable, and I value our relationship the most, so I'm going to, and you said slips and I'm going like Dr. Rob said, he's telling you. And I was like, oh, or did he tell you, or did you catch him? So, cause those are different. So more will be revealed, but you holding healthy boundaries for you and him getting more help. Yeah, 100%. So, okay, next question. I'm a female sex addict, porn addict, blocked all porn from all devices for 20 days now. Yay. In therapy, going to lots of 12-step meetings. Now I find myself taking pictures of myself and using them as porn. Is that following the same addiction process?
Well, you know how you felt sad before? Well, now I'm sad because I'm just going to speak as a person and not as some fancy therapist. What I hear is someone and I relate to this and most of my clients do, although they may not be aware of it. I hear someone who's incredibly lonely and wanting
Mm,
attention and wanting validation and wanting it through the ways that we know how to get it right away. And now there's nobody around to hook up with or get that or the porn or whatever. And now you're objectifying yourself. Maybe that's the only
mm,
one who was there this is what made me sad. Maybe
yeah.
you're the only one there to look back at you. And I have a feeling that this isn't the first time. I could think of a little kid, who
Mm,
uses fantasy in this way just to not feel alone, the kids who were neglected. And so, and I will say also that the number one, or certainly one of the highest forms of trauma that I see in sex addicts is neglect. And so that's what made me really sad about this. Like the closest you can come to the desperate connection you need down here is with yourself. And so, yes, I think it is following the same addiction process. It's going further down the rabbit hole. It doesn't bring you what you want and need. What I wonder about is how much you're talking about this in meetings, that you raise your hand and say, I've been using myself as an object, and what else could I do? How else can I handle it? It isn't enough for some of us to go to meetings and know a lot of people and do all this stuff. Sometimes we need to know what to do when we cross the threshold at home and we're alone. I'm one of those people, well, I think it's better now. I was so empty inside that when I was out in the world, I was fine, but get me home alone. Well, who's going to pay attention to me? Who's going to engage me? Who's going to make me feel like I'm valuable? Because I was so objectified. I'm only as good as how you see me.
Mm.
And so I think that you're a very lonely person and the addiction has a lot to do with it. And I would acknowledge that maybe you need more escape routes when you're home to make sure that before you do that, that maybe there's a different way to connect. And I'll give you my last best sponsor piece, which is you can do that all you want, but you got to call someone first in the recovery and say, I'm thinking about doing this. Is that okay? And they have to say, no, I think you should actually take a hot bath and relax. This may not be something to tackle by yourself.
Uh, 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 so more help. I hope you have a sponsor. It's only 20 days, but I hope you have a sponsor in the 12 step. You can't go to too many 12-step meetings. I
Right.
have had multiple people say that every time I think about relapsing, and I'm not saying you're so anytime you're thinking about doing some of these behaviors that are problematic for you, somebody said, I listened to one of Dr. Rob's podcasts. They're 24/7. You can just, I was like, whatever you need to break that, in the moment, calling a person, having a sponsor to call, having peer support. It doesn't have to just be your sponsor, but having peer support to be able to do that. You're very early in the process. I'm so grateful for you're here. The female sex and love addict group on sexandrelationshiphealing.com is on Tuesday nights. I strongly
It's
encourage you to do
free.
that. Yeah, it's free. And they do share, numbers so you have more contacts. So yeah, more, working on so Dr. Rob's Sex Addiction 101 and the workbook, and getting a 3-circle plan and finding more of the things in the outer circle. Like Dr. Rob said earlier, can you take a walk? Can you do something, can you do something that is good for you just to be nurturing that fills that hole in the soul, could be helpful too. But keep coming back. Promise me you'll keep coming back to here in these other groups.
And I want to add to that for just 1 second. And
Mm-hmm.
if there's any way you could take a little of the focus off of yourself by helping
Mm-hmm.
someone else. I don't know if you knew this, Tammy, but all the men at the treatment center are going to Soup Kitchen on, most of Thanksgiving.
Good.
And there are all kinds of models now in sex offender and sex addiction therapy. Of course, we've always known this as addicts, but that service that I think there's actually brain studies. I just was reading about this, that there is something so rewarding and brings us such peace when we are giving to another person, or even, going to the SPCA and helping with a dog. So,
Mm-hmm.
I would think about in those moments, I wanted to go in front of the mirror. I think, well, but I did this for this person today, or so if you can look for little pieces that are making other people's lives better and get connected that way, other than all of the bad and wrong and terrible, I think it'll help.
Yeah, no, I
Okay.
love that. And, well, on the 12 step, on the coins, part of it is service. That is a key to part of how we do recover. And I was gonna say humane society. So yeah, there's, you start working with pets and, animals, and like that fills your soul too. So yeah, whatever you need to do that's different,
Well, because
uh,
Tammy and I share dog pictures all the time. So
yes,
look how cute
we
my
do.
dog is doing this. Look how Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, next question. My husband is very new to recovery, and I wanted to know if it's selfish of me to ask him to challenge himself to find other ways to be intimate with me other than just sexual. He does have a softer side. I've seen glimpses of him expressing it. I need to know if I'm asking more than he can give. Also, when is a good time to start daily check ins with my partner?
Why don't you answer the last one and I'll answer the first part? How about that?
Okay. You want me to start with that?
Yeah, why don't you do the
Okay.
504 one and I'll do the 503 one. How about that?
Yeah, no, that's all fine. I didn't know which order you want to go. So daily check-ins. You're very new to recovery. There are patterns for that. It sometimes it can be too early for a partner and addict to be able to do that and be truthful about it. So here's where I'm going to back it up a little bit. I hope your partner has a qualified professional that he is working with. I hope you have a qualified professional that can be supportive for you. There's a lot of stuff here I get that you're very new and this is all overwhelming. Nobody gets the roadmap of how to deal with this stuff. Like you never got married going, oh, and then it's certain, at this year I'm going to have discovery and it's going to be, it's going to be all of this stuff that you weren't planning on. I hope you are both leaning into the podcast that I mentioned earlier, the sex, love, and addiction. There's lots of great information. There's a ton of previously recorded webinars too on that site. So you can, pick apart that. I hope he's joining the Sex Addiction 101 work group. If he hasn't already, there's another one December 5th at 90 minutes over 6 weeks. He'll have a 3-circle plan. So getting the tools of recovery, it takes time. So doing a daily check-in. If Fanos, Fanos, I'll go get the information and put it in the chat. That is one form of check-in. There are others, but you can talk to your qualified professionals. They can help you figure out what would be best for you. They're short, but getting those check-ins, can be really helpful if you're able to communicate, if he's able to be honest. If he's still not showing up, honest, that's a challenge. So it is a little bit of a timing thing. I get input from qualified professionals. So I'll turn it over to you and I'll get that link.
No, but I want to just mirror something Tammy said, which is maybe you start by talking in therapy. Maybe you meet with the couples, not a lot, but maybe once a month or once every 6 weeks. The problem is, and the reason we don't recommend, or at least I don't recommend couples therapy at the beginning when some kind of disclosure or discovery or someone's new to recovery, is that oftentimes couples get in a trap in couples therapy. And first of all, the partner doesn't know a lot of stuff. And so there's just all this tension in the room. And often the addict feels both angry and terrible. So, basically all that happens in couples therapy is, why won't you get off my back? And I feel so terrible that I hurt you at the addict end. And at the partner's end, I hate you, you ruined my life. How could you love me and do this? And those are fine things to say, but it's very hard to work from that place. You guys have to kind of separate and work on yourselves and then maybe come back for couples, is how we look at it. But there's nothing wrong with going to see a therapist and just saying, we want to figure this part out. When can we, or we want to have communication in front of a professional, and one of the reasons that I'm concerned with all this, Tammy, is that it's the new part to recovery, is that, for example, I would want some outside feedback. You could say to your husband, would you talk to your sponsor? Or would you raise your hand in a meeting and say, I've only been here 6 weeks or 8 weeks or 9 weeks. And, I do this with my spouse. Do you think it's a good idea? Do you think it's a bad idea? I love that you see the softer side in your spouse, but right now I'm more concerned about the side that hurt you and abused you and let you down. And because we all want to think that's everything okay. We all kind of want to get lured back into, we're fine, we're okay. And that's a problem, by the way. Having a lot of sex early in recovery can often come out of a place where the spouse wants reassurance for the relationship and for themselves, or the spouse starts to feel comfortable, like in some way, like, oh, okay, at least I know what's going on, at least I haven't been crazy. And those aren't good reasons to be sexual with someone. There's only, at least my safety net around being sexual is, do you trust them? And that's always why would you have sex when you don't trust? The part about working your way toward intimate sexuality, I absolutely agree. If I were working with someone who'd been around a year or 6 months and they wanted to start redeveloping intimacy or developing intimacy with a partner, we might have an agreement for 2 weeks. All we're going to do is shoulder massages, or, we're going to dry each other off when the other one gets out of the shower, or I don't know what, or foot rubs. In other words, how many intimate things can you do physically and sharing of yourselves that aren't necessarily having sex? And I also want to say, are you emotionally intimate with each other? Do you know how to do that? Do you know how to, does he or you know how to open themselves up and connect emotionally? Because the part of the sexuality that you want that comes out of affection and connection, and he may not know how to do that, and he certainly may not know, because that's where it comes from, right? You don't just start, hey, let's give each other a massage. You open up, you share, you talk about what's going on, then you feel warmer toward people. I mean, there's a whole process. So I would question emotional intimacy and how is that going. I would look at physical intimacy that is non-penetrative or non-orgasmic. Touching each other. By the way, someone making me dinner, is incredibly wonderful and sensual. It makes me feel great, but it isn't about sex. It's about intimacy. Um, so are you asking more than he can give you? The only question for me would be, where is he at with his sobriety? Because new to recovery means having a lot of sex with you is kind of like maybe replacing part of what he didn't have to do with you before because he was doing it out there, but he's still kind of losing himself at the experience. Um, the other thing is, if he's newly sober, is that going to send him back to acting out? Is that sex with you going to leave him spinning into something that he shouldn't be spinning into? And these are not decisions that necessarily the two of you should make. This is what therapists are for and sponsors are for. Maybe getting some feedback about this beyond just us, but feedback for people who know you and know where you're at. And anyway, that's my best one about that.
Can you also comment on is it selfish, like from the partner standpoint?
Why don't you go ahead?
Okay, well,
Because
because I was
you
like,
know what you're thinking about.
well, I do, because like it feels like, and I'm just making this up, but from what I'm reading, but it feels like you're worried about him, and I don't hear that
Right,
you're like incredibly angry for the betrayal and the hurt, and so you're
right,
still working on taking care of him. And is it like, am I asking too much? Yeah,
right.
like there's all, well, I don't know about always, 99.9% of the time there's a huge gap on what an addict can show up and do, and what a partner really deserves and thought they should have from the get-go. I agree with Dr. Rob. I mean, I hear often from addicts who are struggling because it's like, or partners who go, I feel like I'm part of the porn, like he's using me like he used porn. So I agree with Dr. Rob. Why would you want to have penetrative sex with somebody you don't trust? But to me, it's not like it's not about you being selfish. It's like, you have a real reason to be identify your anger and like at what has happened, and grieve the loss of the relationship you hope for with this person who has betrayed you. So it feels like selfish is putting it on you of like, oh, like, am I asking too much? You may be asking for more than you give, but are you asking for too much? No, you want a partner who's showing up. So you having a healthy boundary about what you need for your physical safety, emotional safety, financial safety, spiritual safety, that's key. And that's not being selfish. That is showing that I value me and I'm going to take care of me, even though you couldn't. I am. So that was where I was going. Can you tell?
Yeah, no, that was, and I guess I want to know, do you want to have sex with him? I don't even really see, I really want to have sex with him, but I'm worried about this or that. What do you want? Do you want to be sexual? Do you want to be intimate? Are you saying, I want to do this? I want to, or like, what exactly are you saying for yourself? So I think there's a lot to be clarified. Let's move on because I know we're too
Oh,
short on
okay.
time.
Yes.
Lots of
Yes. And we're going
questions.
to, yes. How do I handle the stress of acting as though things are between my husband and
Fine. Hmm.
my sex addiction husband and I are peachy and healthy as we approach the family holiday season. I've told my SA husband I don't feel comfortable telling our immediate families about his addiction and betrayal trauma it has caused. Yes, partly this is absolutely about shame I'm wrestling with, though I
Right.
also have the real concerns about some toxic tendencies in our families to blow things into a war and make our issues their issues. Absolutely true. That said,
Great
wearing the mask of,
insight.
yes, wearing the mask of ease and happiness has already been very taxing. How do I continue to keep up my boundary of not telling our immediate families, but also allow myself safe space um to feel not okay?
Well, I don't know what period of time you're spending with them or, what, whether but my response to this is try not to spend a lot of time. Like if you come for dinner and you spend 2 or 3 hours together, if you can, if you're just coming for the day or for the evening, it's less likely you're going to fall into that. I don't, Tammy, what is wrong with being superficial? Maybe I'm wrong about that,
And,
but
at this point, superficial, or what, divide and conquer. Like he can go to his family, you can go to your family. It's like, yep, we're just, oh, it's been a lot this year, whatever. But yeah, the superficial and change the subject. But yeah, like Dr. Rob said earlier, sitting at the Thanksgiving table and having the over turkey talking about his sex addiction. Oh my gosh, that'd be
uh-huh.
horrible. So and and sometimes people perceive that, well, if I tell them, then they're going to be on my side. It doesn't always
That's
go
even
that way.
worse.
I know partners have had it. I mean, I can't tell you how many times partners have gone, they're blaming me, Yeah.
Right,
So
I
like
heard
you
that.
don't know what hornet's nest you're going to open up. What do you need for your
Right.
physical safety? And yeah, I mean, like figure it out. And it's okay to say, we're going together. We're going for, 2 hours, and then we've got another engagement. And or I'm going to go be with my family. You
Hmm.
can go be with, I just can't. It's okay. Take care of this year, just for this year. You can figure out next year. But this year, it's okay to just go, I'm not going to paint on the happy, cheery face if you don't feel it, so.
I want to add just one thing to this, which
Mhm.
is, and I think this is a really good idea because I thought of it, is that you can set up ways to take care of yourself. So let's say you're going to be there for 2 days or 3 days, or it's not a meal. You can't get out of there. Sorry. Um, who can you talk to? What
Oh, great
support
idea.
group have you been going to where you say, I'm going to check in with you in the morning and you in the afternoon because I might get all caught up in this and I need
Mhm.
someone to talk about this with, but I don't want to bring it up here. You don't have to keep it all bottled up. You just don't want to bring it up with those folks, at least certainly. And I really admire, look, it's hard. It's the addicts make it harder on you by the nature of our problem. Of course, with anything in the world you're struggling with, you should be able to turn to your family or at least the safe people there. But I love what this person said about, I don't want it to touch on my shame, which is to me meant um, maybe I could have done a better job. It's like the family going after me because it's my fault or my feeling like it's my fault. I think it's a great boundary to say I'm not. I think it was best not to talk to my family, and the toxic tendencies in our families to blow things into a war. Have you met my family? I feel like you've met them, but be superficial, watch TV game, watch the game you were never interested in, and most of all, have someone to reach out to. You can go in another room and put on some headphones and go to one of the support groups or go to Al-Anon, or there are people all through the holiday you can sit with. We love, I can't speak for Tammy, but sometimes just being in a room where people are sharing about their own challenges and relating to it, really, I find very comforting. It's like a meditation. So don't be alone with this, is what I say to you.
Yes, I love that. And and have a plan. Have something on your phone that you can read. Have somebody that you can be texting and just go, yeah, I'm hanging in there. Or oh my God, Aunt Lucy's doing like whatever. I mean, whatever you need to do. Okay, one more, and then we'll see. I'm going to save the other questions for another time. I'm a 24-year-old straight male college student. I started watching porn when I was 8. I believe I became desensitized to porn, specifically with women. I still find women hot, but I consider myself straight. I still consider myself straight. I never considered myself bisexual or homosexual ever. And to this day, I'm attracted to women outside of the porn realm. When I watch porn, I guess that I have developed a fetish of male genitalia. There's also subreddit called sissy hypnosis, which supposedly turns viewers into sissies. So now that when I watch porn because of this hypnosis, I've developed tendencies which may be a fetish, but the tendencies are when I masturbate, I
I
feel
think that
like
this
the
is
woman. Okay, thank you. Okay.
way too I think that this is someone who's really struggling. Why do they watch certain kind of porn when they never thought that it would be a thing that they would be turned on? And all I can say to you folks is that porn is both arousing and exploratory, meaning that, and I'll say this, I said this before, I am a sissy. And by the way, that's like using the N word. We don't really, use that word. It's incredibly
I was
insulting.
like, I don't even know what
That's
it
what they
is.
called me when I was 5 in the
So thank you.
schoolyard. It's
Oh, oh wow. Okay.
well, it's just the same as the N word, or really it's
Yeah.
my culture. So if you take a word that is derogatory and you call me that, now I can claim it. I can say, yeah, I'm a big old sissy, but I own that. But in any case, what I hear is someone is struggling with something they look at that they're aroused by and they don't understand it. And I just want you to get this, is that the reason I bring up being homosexual is because I have seen boobs in so much porn. I've seen big boobs, I've seen small boobs, I've seen a lot of porn because I'm a sexologist and we had to actually study porn. And no matter how many women's breasts I see, it doesn't turn me on. I think about what they would look best wearing. I mean, that's about as far as I go. Meaning, I'm not sensitized to look at or aroused by um, women's body parts, no matter how many times I see them. So if I saw something that turned me on, even though I didn't expect it, it probably is something that turns me on. So I don't know what it means for you, but and I don't know what you call yourself. I don't think it needs a name at all. I just think maybe it's okay to say I have an attraction to men. That's it. You don't have to call it a fetish. You don't have to say about trauma. You don't have to call it, you don't have to go on Reddit and find names for it. You can just simply say, I have an attraction to men and I'm not sure what to do with it or what it means. And you can explore that if you want. But, walks like a duck, talks like a duck. If it doesn't have some kind of sexual resonance inside of you, then it doesn't exist. And if it does, then it's part of who you are. So I would just be curious about it. I'm curious that I have this attraction. I don't know what it means. And I'm not going to Google it. Okay. That's probably not going to be helpful. But I love you're here and asking questions. I mean, I think that's a good start. Tammy, you could read the next one so quick.
Okay. The next one is, oh, wait, hang on. Let me get this.
If there are no.
Oh, no, I already typed an answer to that one. So yeah.
Oh, okay.
So yeah. So the next one is married 35 years, found out about porn addiction since his teens, numerous emotional affairs, and a physical affair 7 years ago, full relapse 18 months ago, sober since August, but he still doesn't understand why he can't keep secrets. He's on step 1 in SA. Oh man, after all that time. And has been seeing a CSAT since August. I know he's very damaged by his mother, who is still alive and causing problems. How long should it take him to figure this out?
Well, I think this is another person who probably would do well in residential treatment. And when I hear married 35 years, when I don't hear, well, he's 27 or she's 32, or when someone has been struggling with this for so many years, because I assume they're not, 40 if they've been married 35 years. I often say to the older men I work with, or men my age, which is, I started working on this when I was 26. I've had the opportunity to be in therapy and 12-step programs for more of my life than I haven't, which I haven't really thought about. But once you're 55, 60, you don't have that much time to get down all the stuff you need to get down. And so the more opportunity you have to do that, the better. And that's why I recommend, especially if he's, by the way, if I'm 60 something and I'm still dealing with the damage of my mother, there's some work I need to do. If I'm 25, yes, 35, yes, but 65, that was a very long time ago. So let me see what else. There was something else in here. Yeah, Tammy, I don't feel good about, I feel bad about this. And I feel like some of the wool is being pulled over your eyes with, oh, but I was damaged by my mother and it's still causing problems
Yeah.
and she's still alive. But I also see full relapse, and anyway, by the way, sober on step 1 or working on step 1, but seeing a CSAT since August. I don't know. There's something here that doesn't feel right, Tammy, and I'm not sure what it is.
I agree. And like step 1, in the olden days, they would take people through all 12 steps in a couple of hours, so somebody 18 months in and still stuck at step 1, that is somebody who doesn't want to change. So
Or
getting
it
a
doesn't have
higher
good
level of help.
guidance.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is someone whose butt needs to be kicked is really the issue. I do want to say that a number of people have written in about finding CSATs or experts in this work. And that's why I do want to say it, Tammy, that Tammy worked with the expert training organization for, I don't know, a decade. I don't know how long you were there.
More than a decade. Yeah. So
Tammy has pretty much knows every trained person in the country and outside the country. We also know the ones that aren't very good. And we don't get
yes.
kickbacks from therapists.
No.
So, right, Tammy at seekingintegrity.com. And we make a lot of recommendations. We actually know who are good therapists and, where there's a good weekend or workshop or something. So several people asked about it. And,
Yes.
Tammy's a great resource.
And if one of them doesn't work, write me back or see if they, if they don't have a lot, the good ones, many of them are full. Guess what? I know more, but I was going to type this in, but I appreciate the opportunity here. It's a like going to a general practitioner. Oh, this person says they do this or they do some addiction work. CSATs are highly trained professionals. They have their licensed credentials and then they go do 150 hours of additional training. And then they keep that certification by continuing that education. They have tools that non-CSATs do not have access to. You want the right diagnosis. Dr. Rob has said, if you need a heart doctor, you want a heart doctor, not your general practitioner. If you need a cancer doctor, you need a cancer specialist. You want the right help. So you get to pick.
But you want to go to the best cardiac person. You want to go to the
Yes.
best. There's
Yes.
lots of surgeons. I don't mean to correct you. I want to add to what you're
No.
saying. And that's,
Yeah.
I think, the filter that we have. There are lots of
Yes.
very good therapists who don't do this work very well. There are lots of therapists who kind of get this, but they don't do therapy. It's hard stuff.
Yeah.
So,
And the good ones go, this is out of my arena, and I'm
yes.
going to refer you. That's a really good general practitioner. Or, so I love when I hear, this is something I don't normally deal with. Can you help? Yes, we'll give you the resources and support to get that person to someone who can. That's a good therapist, but just
Yeah,
not
and if
trained
your
to do this
therapist
work.
needs resources, we will send them to them, or we'll say, have your
Yeah.
therapist read this book. Or
Mhm.
anyway, Tammy, I'm going to say I'm grateful for you. I have
Likewise.
My life is so much better on so many levels because you were in it, and that is true.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, right.
And I hope you always know how I feel about you as well. I mean, I love this team. I love Seeking Integrity. And you know who started it? Dr. Rob. This name is because of him. The core values of our company are about integrity. We strive for it personally. We want to help our clients, find that as well. It's a journey. I'm grateful to be on it with you, Dr. Rob. So, and thank you all for showing up tonight on the Monday night of Thanksgiving. Check out the schedule, like I mentioned earlier. Lots of shifts in this holiday week. So check out the calendar on events on sexandrelationship.healing.com. And I took pictures of the questions we didn't get to, so we can start with those. So all right, I'll be in touch.
Good luck.
Thanks very
Good
much. We've
luck
got a
with the
couple of things
holiday
to talk about.
weekend.
Yes. Yeah, everybody. Thank
Bye
you.
for now.
Bye-bye.
Happy holidays, you guys.